What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actors finally snaps on live television when the cameras are rolling, and millions are watching some moments become legendary for all the wrong reasons? Tonight we're diving deep into the explosive confrontation that left studio audiences gasping and sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. This is the story of how a routine late-night talk show appearance turned into an all-out verbal battle that nobody saw coming. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what went down between Hugh Jackman and Jimmy Kimmel. The evening started with Jimmy's typical opening as Hugh walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. After the usual pleasantries and small talk about Hugh's flight and the weather, Jimmy dove into what seemed like standard interview territory. "So, Hugh, you're back on Broadway, which is fantastic. But I have to ask, and our audience is dying to know," Jimmy said with that trademark grin. "Is it true that you only took this role because the movie offers have been drying up lately?" Hugh's smile remained intact, but there was a slight pause. "Well, Jimmy, that's not really accurate. I chose this project because I'm passionate about theater and wanted to return to my roots." "Come on, though," Jimmy pressed, leaning forward conspiratorially. "Between you and me, when was the last time you got offered a leading role in a major studio film? I mean, let's be honest here." The audience shifted slightly. Sensing the tension, Hugh maintained his composure, but his voice carried a slight edge. "I think you might be misinformed about my career situation. Jimmy, I've been very fortunate to have multiple projects in development." Jimmy chuckled, but it wasn't warm. Multiple projects in development, that's Hollywood, speak for unemployed. Right, folks? He gestured to the audience, getting a few uncomfortable laughs. "But seriously, Hugh, there have been some rumors floating around about why you really left the Wolverine franchise. Some people are saying it wasn't entirely your choice." Hugh's jaw tightened visibly. "I think I was pretty clear in my previous interviews that it was my decision to move on from that character after 17 years, right?" "Right," Jimmy nodded mockingly. "But sources close to the studio have been saying something different. They're saying that Marvel actually pushed you out because, and I quote, you were becoming too difficult to work with on set." The Mo studio fell noticeably quieter. Hugh's hands gripped his chair arms. "I'm sorry. What sources are you referring to exactly?" Jimmy waved dismissively. "Oh, you know how it is. People talk, but let's move on to something even more interesting. Your marriage has been in the headlines lately, hasn't it?" Hugh's entire demeanor changed instantly. "I'm here to talk about my Broadway show, Jimmy." Of course," Jimmy said, with false sympathy. "But our viewers are curious. There have been some pretty persistent rumors about trouble at home. Some tabloids are saying that your wife has been seen with her divorce attorney multiple times this month." Hugh's voice became dangerously quiet. "I think you need to be very careful about what you're saying right now." Jimmy seemed to interpret this as encouragement rather than warning. "Hey, I'm just reporting what's out there. But between the career struggles and the marriage problems, it must be pretty tough being Hugh Jackman right now. I mean, when you really think about it, what do you have left?" The audience was dead silent, now sensing they were witnessing something that had gone far beyond normal interview boundaries. Hugh stared at Jimmy for a long moment, his breathing controlled, but his fury clearly building. "What do I have left?" Hugh repeated slowly, his voice carrying a menace that made everyone in the studio lean forward. Jimmy, apparently oblivious to the danger he was in, pressed on. "Well, yeah, I mean, no more Wolverine. Broadway doesn't pay the bills like movies do. Marriage on the rocks, according to the tabloids. And let's face it, You're not getting any younger in an industry that worships. Youth Hugh's laugh was cold and humorless. You know what, Jimmy? I came here tonight to talk about something I love, something I'm passionate about. Instead, you've decided to ambush me with lies and gossip. Whoa! Whoa! Jimmy held up his hands in mock defense. These aren't lies. These are legitimate questions that people are asking legitimate questions. Hugh's voice rose slightly, the first crack in his professional facade. You call spreading unsubstantiated rumors about my marriage legitimate journalism? Jimmy shrugged. Look, if there's nothing to hide, then what's the big deal? Just deny it, and we move on. Hugh leaned forward, his eyes locked on Jimmy's. The big deal is that you're sitting here on national television making up stories about my personal life for your own entertainment. I'm not making anything up. Jimmy protested, but his confidence was starting to waver as he realized Hugh wasn't backing down. I'm just asking about things that are already public knowledge. Public knowledge. Hugh's voice was rising now, his anger becoming impossible to contain. Show me one credible source that says any of what you just claimed. Show me one legitimate publication that reported these so-called facts. Jimmy shuffled his cards nervously. Well, I mean, it's all over social media. And social media. Hugh interrupted, his voice now carrying real venom. So you're basing your interview questions on social media? Gossip. Is that what passes for journalism on this show? Now the tension in the studio was palpable. Camera operators were getting signals from producers. Audience members were pulling out phones, and Jimmy was beginning to realize he had seriously miscalculated. Look, Hugh, maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. Jimmy tried to backtrack. Why don't we just talk about your show? But Hugh was far from finished. No, Jimmy. I think we need to address what just happened here. You invited me on your show, presumably, to promote my work, and instead you decided to launch a personal attack based on tabloid gossip and social media rumors. Jimmy's trademark smirk was completely gone now, replaced by genuine concern, as he realized the situation was spiraling out of his control. I was just trying to have some fun. Hugh, you know how these interviews go. Hugh's response came with the precision of someone who had been pushed beyond his breaking point and was now ready to push back with everything he had. Fun Hugh's voice cut through the studio like a blade. You think attacking someone's marriage and spreading lies about their career is fun? Is that what you call entertainment? Jimmy tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out forced and hollow. Come on, Hugh. You're being a little dramatic here. This is late-night television. We're supposed to have a good time. A good time. Hugh stood up from his chair, towering over Jimmy, who remained seated, suddenly looking much smaller. Let me tell you what would be a good time. Jimmy, a good time would be having a host who actually prepared legitimate questions about the project I came here to discuss. The audience was completely silent. Phones recording what everyone knew was television history in the making. Jimmy's producers were frantically signaling from behind the cameras, but there was no stopping what was happening. Now you, please, Jimmy gestured, weakly. Let's just reset here and talk about your Broadway show. Hugh remained standing, his presence commanding the entire studio. Reset. You think you can just reset? After what you did, you just spent 10 minutes trying to destroy my reputation on national television, and now you want to reset? Jimmy's nervous laughter filled the awkward silence. Look, I think you're taking this way too seriously. We were just having a conversation. A conversation? Hugh's eyes flashed with rage. Is that what you call it when you accuse someone of being unemployed, difficult to work with, and getting divorced, All without a shred of evidence. That's your idea of conversation." Jimmy shifted, uncomfortably in his chair, clearly regretting his decision to push so hard. "I was just repeating what I heard." "What you heard from who, exactly?" Hugh interrupted, his voice booming through the studio. "Give me names, Jimmy. Give me sources. If you're going to sit there and destroy someone's character, at least have the courage to back it up with facts." The color was draining from Jimmy's face as he realized he had no answers. "Well, I mean, there are always rumors in Hollywood." "Rumors?" Hugh leaned down, bringing his face closer to Jimmy's. "So you built an entire interview around rumors? You brought me here under false pretenses to ambush me with gossip." Jimmy tried to regain some control. "Now hold on, Hugh. You're making this sound worse than it is. I ask tough questions. That's what I do." Hugh straightened up, his laugh bitter and cold. "Tough questions. Jimmy, a tough question would be asking me about the challenges of transitioning from film to theater. A tough question would be asking about the physical demands of performing 8 shows a week. What you did wasn't tough questioning. It was character assassination. The studio audience was riveted watching one of the most intense confrontations in late-night television history unfold before their eyes. Jimmy's usual confidence had completely evaporated. "I think you're overreacting," Jimmy said weakly, but his voice lacked any conviction. Overreacting, Hugh's voice rose again. "My wife is watching this show right now. Jimmy, my children might see clips of this online. You just told millions of people that my marriage is falling apart based on absolutely nothing. And you think I'm overreacting." Jimmy opened his mouth to respond, but Hugh wasn't finished. "And let's talk about these so-called career struggles you mentioned. You said movie offers have dried up, that I was pushed out of the Wolverine franchise, that I am too difficult to work with. Where exactly did you get that information?" Jimmy fumbled with his note cards. There were reports." "What reports?" Hugh demanded. "Show me the reports, right now. Show the audience. These credible sources you're basing your questions on." The silence stretched on, as Jimmy realized he had nothing to show. His entire attack had been built on gossip and speculation. And now, he was being called to account for it in front of millions of viewers. "I don't have them with me right now," Jimmy admitted quietly. Hugh's expression was one of complete disgust. "You don't have them because they don't exist. You made this entire thing up, didn't you? You decided before I even walked out here that you were going to try to humiliate me for your own entertainment." Jimmy's voice was barely above a whisper. "Now, that wasn't my intention." "Your intention?" Hugh's anger reached a new level. "Your intention was to create viral moments at my expense. Your intention was to generate headlines by destroying someone's reputation with lies and rumors." The audience was completely captivated, witnessing a masterclass in how someone fights back when pushed too far. Jimmy looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. "Let me tell you something about intentions, Jimmy." Hugh continued, his voice now carrying the authority of someone who had completely taken control of the situation. "My intention when I came here tonight was to share my passion for theater with your audience. My intention was to talk about the incredible cast I'm working with and the story we're telling on stage." Jimmy nodded frantically. "We can still do that. We can talk about the show." Hugh shook his head slowly. "No. Jimmy, we can't. Because you've just demonstrated that you have no interest in legitimate conversation. You've shown your audience exactly what kind of person you are." The words hung in the air like an accusation that couldn't be taken back. Jimmy's face was flushed, his usual cockiness replaced by obvious distress. "What kind of person I am?" Jimmy tried to sound indignant, but failed miserably. Hugh's response was measured and devastating. "The kind of person who invites guests onto his show and then ambushes them with lies. The kind of person who thinks other people's pain and struggle is material for comedy. The kind of person who has so little respect for truth that he'll say anything for a laugh." Jimmy was visibly shaking now, completely out of his depth. "Hugh, please, can we just? What?" Hugh interrupted. "Can we just pretend this didn't happen? Can we just move on? Like you didn't just spend 15 minutes trying to destroy my reputation. The studio was so quiet. You could hear the cameras humming. Every person in the building was transfixed by what they were witnessing. I'm sorry," Jimmy finally said, but the words sounded empty and desperate. Hugh stared at him for a long moment before responding. "Sorry, you're sorry. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Do you understand that your lies will be online forever? That my family will have to see this garbage?" Jimmy's apology had only made things worse, and Hugh was far from finished with him. Hugh's stare was unwavering, his presence dominating every inch of the studio. Jimmy's weak apology hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was still burning. "You know what the really pathetic part is?" Jimmy Hugh's voice was calm now, but that only made it more terrifying. "You actually think, sorry, fixes this. You think you can spend 20 minutes destroying someone, and then make it all go away with one word." Jimmy was desperately looking toward his producers for help, but they were just as stunned as everyone else. "Hugh, I really didn't mean for this to get so out of hand." Out of hand? Hugh let out a laugh that had no humor in it whatsoever. "Jimmy, this got out of hand the moment you decided to base your interview on tabloid gossip and social media rumors. This got out of hand when you chose to attack my marriage and my career with absolutely no evidence." The audience was completely mesmerized watching Hugh systematically dismantle Jimmy's credibility piece by piece. Jimmy tried to interrupt, but Hugh wasn't having it. "No, you don't get to talk right now. You've done enough talking. Now it's, my turn." Hugh's voice carried the authority of someone who had been pushed beyond every limit. "You want to know what's really going on with my career? Jimmy, I'll tell you. I just signed a 3-picture deal worth more money than you'll make in your entire lifetime. You want to know about my marriage? My wife and I just celebrated our anniversary last month, and we're happier than we've ever been." Jimmy's face went even paler as he realized how badly he had miscalculated everything. "But here's the thing," Hugh continued. "I shouldn't have to defend my personal life to you or anyone else. The fact that I'm even having to address these lies shows just how low you've sunk." Jimmy tried to speak again. "I was just trying to what?" Hugh's anger flared again. "Trying to humiliate me. Trying to create viral content at my expense. Trying to boost your ratings by destroying someone's reputation." The studio was dead silent, except for Hugh's voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Let me tell you what you've accomplished tonight. Jimmy, you've shown everyone watching that you have no integrity, no professionalism, and no respect for the people who come on your show. You've demonstrated that you're willing to spread lies and rumors just to get a reaction." Jimmy was visibly sweating, now his usual composure completely shattered. "Hugh, please, I think we should take a commercial break." "A commercial break?" Hugh's voice rose again. "Oh no, Jimmy, we're not taking a break. You started this conversation, And we're going to finish it right here, right now, in front of everyone. The audience was on the edge of their seats witnessing television history as Hugh continued his devastating takedown. You know what? The saddest part about all of this is, I actually used to respect you. I thought you were one of the good ones in this business. I thought you understood that the people who come on your show are human beings, not just content for your entertainment. Jimmy's voice was barely audible. I do understand that. No, you don't. Hugh cut him off immediately. If you understood that you never would have ambushed me with lies about my personal life, if you understood that you would have asked me about my work, my passions, the things I actually came here to discuss, Hugh began pacing slightly, his energy filling the entire studio as Jimmy sat frozen in his chair. Instead, you chose to try to embarrass me, humiliate me, and damage my reputation based on nothing more than gossip and speculation. You chose to attack my marriage, my career, and my character without any regard for the truth. Jimmy tried one more desperate attempt to regain control. Look, maybe I made some mistakes tonight, but we can fix this. Hugh stopped pacing and stared directly at Jimmy, his eyes blazing with fury. Fix this? How exactly do you plan to fix this? Jimmy, are you going to call every person who watched this show tonight and tell them you made it all up? Are you going to personally apologize to my wife and children for the lies you just told about our family? The weight of Hugh's words seemed to crush Jimmy even further into his chair. He had no answers, no solutions, no way out of the hole he had dug for himself. You can't fix this. Hugh continued relentlessly. You can't undo what you just did. Those lies you told are going to be online forever. They're going to be clipped and shared and taken out of context for years to come. Jimmy's voice was shaking now. I never wanted it to go this far, but it did go this far. Didn't it? Hugh's voice was like steel. And whose fault is that? Did someone force you to spread those rumors? Did someone make you attack my personal life? Or did you choose to do that all by yourself? The studio audience was completely captivated watching Jimmy get destroyed by his own actions while Hugh stood over him like a force of nature. You chose this, Jimmy. You chose to prioritize cheap laughs over basic human decency. You chose to value viral moments over honest journalism. You chose to attack someone who came here in good faith to promote their work. Jimmy was struggling to even look at Hugh now, his shame and embarrassment obvious to everyone watching. And you know what else you chose. Hugh's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more power than his shouting, You chose to show your audience exactly what kind of person you really are. Not the charming host they see on television, but the real you. The you that thinks other people's pain is entertainment. Hugh straightened up, to his full height, towering over the cowering talk show host, like a giant among children. So, thanking you, Jimmy. Thank you for showing everyone watching what happens when someone with no integrity tries to attack someone who actually has principles. Thank you for demonstrating the difference between someone who builds people up and someone who tears them down. Jimmy was completely silent now, having no defense left for his actions. I came here tonight to talk about theater, about art, about something beautiful that brings people together. Instead, you turned it into this circus, this attack, this pathetic display of what passes for entertainment in your world. Hugh looked directly into the camera, addressing the audience at home, rather than Jimmy. To everyone watching at home, this is what I want you to remember. When someone invites you somewhere and then attacks you with lies, don't just sit there and take it. Stand up for yourself. Demand better. Expect truth instead of gossip. He turned back. To Jimmy, one final time. As for you, Jimmy, I hope this was worth it. I hope those cheap shots you took at my family were worth destroying, whatever credibility you had left. I hope the temporary entertainment value was worth showing the world who you really are. Hugh began walking toward the exit, but turned back for one last devastating blow. Oh, and Jimmy, next time you want to interview me, don't bother calling. I don't associate with people who have so little respect for truth and basics, human decency. With that, Hugh Jackman walked off the stage, leaving Jimmy Kimmel sitting alone in front of a studio audience that had just witnessed one of the most brutal takedowns in television history. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the sound of Hugh's footsteps disappearing backstage. Jimmy sat there for what felt like an eternity, staring at his hands, knowing that every second of his humiliation had been captured on camera and would soon be viewed by millions of people around the world. And there you have it, folks. One of the most intense confrontations ever captured on live television, showing what happens when someone finally stands up to a bully who thought they could hide behind their platform. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment below with your thoughts. Do you think Hugh Jackman was right to call out Jimmy Kimmel like that? Or do you think he went too far? Let me know what you think in the comments section.